The CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, was pew-pewed in the middle of the street, and reactions are not that crazy. People are kind of celebrating it more online than you would think. Yeah, the video got released, everyone's seeing it, and it doesn't matter. People just don't care. Before I get into the very specifics of people's reactions to this, I need to explain a few things. I've talked about this on stream before, but I'm going to share something with you. You don't know what $1 billion is. You really don't know. Now, you think you know what $1 billion is because you know what the number is, but you don't know what $1 billion is.
Don't tell me what I know, Travis.
The reason why I say this is because I discovered something called the birthday paradox, and it really transformed the way I think about things. How many people do you think it would require before you get a 50% chance that they have the same birthday? So the birthday paradox is a rule that at 23 people, if you take a randomly selected group of 23 people, there's a greater than 50% chance that 2 of those people have the same birthday. Now, when I say that to you, you might think this guy is actually retarded.
You are so full of baloney.
Because I thought it was retarded. So the birthday paradox doesn't make sense to most people. And when I first discovered it, it didn't make sense to me. And my hyper intelligent friend Jeff began trying to explain to me why this works and showing me the math. And I was like, nope, I don't care.
How about no?
You need to show me the math in a very intuitive way. It's like at smaller numbers so that I can grasp it conceptually. That's the only way that I'm going to accept this. Because I don't care that the math equals that. I don't care. It's wrong. It's just no, right? And I keep going, and I'm trying my best to imagine this concept, and I couldn't get it. It didn't make any sense to me. Despite the math, I didn't care. I remember eventually I started looking online for information about it. I found a simulator, and the simulator would randomly select birthdays, and the simulator kept giving me, greater than slightly more than 50%. And I was like, no, this person rigged this simulator in order to propagate this nonsense because this is a lie. It just is not true. I don't care what you're telling me. I don't care what the math says. This isn't true, okay?
A commemorative tinfoil hat.
I can be stubborn like that because it just did not make any intuitive sense. So I'm still trying to figure it out. And I'm just like, once I see the simulator though, I really do start feeling like, okay, this is probably true. But why does it make so little sense to me? Why can't I understand it? So the next step was to start looking up why it's common for people not to be able to understand this. And someone broke down to me that human beings think very linear. We do not think exponentially. We can't. We are linear beings and we think linear.
Does anyone even know where we're marching to?
Who cares?
I question nothing. Me too.
Me too.
Well, fine.
Intuitively in an exponential way. We just don't. When you encounter the birthday paradox and someone tells you 23 people, your first thought is to be like, well, there's 365 days in a year, so you would need about 180 people in order to come to this conclusion. The way I normally start this, the way I normally make people encounter the birthday paradox, as opposed to just giving them the answer, I ask them the question, how many do we need to put in that room before we get a 50% chance that 2 of them have the same birthday? Most people say something close to 180, because that's what I would say. Then you explain to them, no, it's only 23 people. At which point, then they tell you you're an idiot and you're a liar and you're retarded.
You liar!
That's about it. What it would be if it was 2 people. You would need about 180 people. Or 181, or somewhere around there. The reason why the birthday paradox doesn't make so much sense is because we're thinking of it in a linear way, but in reality, it's an exponential problem. And the way you can really kind of explain it to people that starts making more sense is that you're not making 22 comparisons when you have 23 people. You're making 253 comparisons because you're comparing one person to 22 other people, second person to 21 other people, third person to 20 other people, fourth person to 19 other people, etc., until you're around 250 something comparisons just with 23 people. So when you do that many comparisons, the likelihood that 2 of them match out of 253 comparisons is not nearly as crazy. It starts actually being about over 50% chance that 2 of them will match out of those 253 comparisons. But your brain won't want to think of that many comparisons. Your brain will try to think of just a linear and try to expound it out a little bit more.
Dad, I don't have a brain.
So the birthday paradox is a perfect example. I remember when I was a very young kid and I was hanging out with my very intelligent cousins, the Matthews, and I was about 12 years old and we were in a car and they asked, someone would offer you $150,000 or they would give you 1 penny and then double that, and then double that, and then double that, so on and so forth for 30 days. Which would you take? You're like, a penny And so when I first hear that, my first thing is to try to do the math really quickly, right? So I'm like, okay, 1, 2, 4, 8, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, 4096, 80, 192. And so it's like, okay, so now we're already at 14 days. That's almost half. It's almost half. And we're only at $81.92. I gotta go with the $100,000, right? And of course, you know, I was kind of shaky on it, but I'm like, yeah, I think I gotta go with the, you know, $100,000. Turns out that by the time you reach the end of the 30 days, you're at $5 million. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, it's because it's an exponential problem. Because once you get to the second day, you're at 2, right? And then the next day is 2 to the second power 4. Next day is 2 to the third power 8, 2 to the fourth power 16, 32, 64, 128, etc. And it keeps going up, right? Until you get to the 5 million mark, you know, because that number starts expanding so rapidly because of exponential growth. And again, it doesn't make a lot of sense because we don't think exponentially, we think linear. Intuitively, we think linear. I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want you to try to do the math in your head. I want you to try to think just intuitively, very quickly, the answer to this question. Now, when I tell people to do this, I watch it in real time. I tell them to do this, and then they immediately start doing the math. They can't help it. So I'm going to try to get you to think to yourself. You're not going to try to do the math. You're just going to try to come to a really intuitive answer, just based off of your brain, and just quickly come up with an answer without doing the math in your head first. If you spent $100,000 a day, $100,000 a day, how long before you reach $1 billion? Now, some of you are already doing the math. I know you can't help it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much I try to tell you not to, you're going to do the math. Some of you are doing the math and are still going to come to the wrong answer. Most people say something around like, I don't know, 3-4 years, 5 years, etc. Not knowing. The answer is actually 27 years it would take you to spend that $1 billion. Doesn't make a lot of sense because we really don't understand what $1 billion is. Because $1 billion can be thought of exponentially as $1,000 to the third power. $1,000, the second power is 1 million. You know, 1,000 times 1,000 equals 1 million. And $1,000 to the third power is 1 billion. And of course, $1,000 to the fourth power is 1 trillion. And we're going to talk about that. Insane. Now that I've told you it's an exponential problem, it's an exponential number, or thought of it as an exponential number, it might stop making a lot of sense to you. Or, you might think you still understand it, but you don't. Someone pointed out, if you took, on the day Jesus was born, you gave a guy a job and you paid him $20,000 an hour, you had him work 8 hours a day, and you never had him take a break off, and he never spent any of that money, and you had him work from the day Jesus was born until now, that person wouldn't have as much money as Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. So you give a guy $20,000 an hour, meaning if you work in 8-hour days, you'd get $160,000 every day. And you had him work every single day from the day Jesus was born until today, and he wouldn't have as much money as Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. $160,000 a day, every day. Do you understand how absurd that is?